Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle Me. In my series Freemasonry and Satanism. As I've said before, how appropriate it was that I named it Freemasonry and Satanism. It seems that Freemasonry, along with many of the other temples and lodges and secret societies, Fabian Society, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus, Council of Foreign Relations, and then of course the upper echelon would be things like the Zionist organizations, Kabbalistic Jewish people, as well as other people into these Illuminati Kabbalah type satanic religion, I guess you could say, theology. So there are, and there have been, evil forces operating behind the scenes, or ever, I guess. And during all those years, thousands of years, they pitted people against each other. And they would use things, deception, false flags, saying things that the enemy was barbaric and had slaughtered a bunch of our countrymen. And over in that country, that king or emperor or Caesar or whatever would say, they're evil, they slaughtered a bunch of our citizens. They were using the same argument so that they could have a war with each other for an ability or a tool to control the people. And I'm sure during these wars, certain peoples were eliminated and their property taken. They call it purging. They even do it during revolutions. So all the people with any kind of knowledge or positions of power, it's a convenient way to eliminate them. They've been doing this for thousands of years. Wars everywhere. All still controlled by the puppet masters. Leaders of both sides. In the back room somewhere or in some castle, wherever. Laughing. How foolish the people are. So it went on and on and on. And then we had a couple of nuclear bombs exploded in Japan. And this threat of a nuclear weapon created a problem for these elites. Whether they're the elites over there at the Vatican, the high echelon, not all the lower people. The elites over there in Israel, probably not all the citizens. The elites in Washington, D.C., New York, Hollywood, but of course not all the lower levels. A lot of deception going on. But, like I said, with the threat of nuclear weapons and the advanced technologies, continuing this little facade and getting people to buy the program, especially with the internet, people are becoming more educated. They had to solve this problem. How do we still keep the people in line? So I have a book here that I've mentioned many times, and it's time I make a video on it. This will be series number 28. One of those filler holes when I was reorganizing my videos after 3 years. Before, if I made a video on a Freemasonic New Age magazine, I would give it a series number like 9. And when I made the next one, it might be 11 or 15. So when I reorganized it, I took all those Freemasonic New Age magazines and just assigned them one series number. So I didn't know how far this was going to go when I started. So anyways, one of the holes that I have to fill was number 28. And the book is Report from Iron Mountain. What happened was, report from Iron Mountain on the possibility and desirability of peace. They have a problem with peace. They still have to control people. Introductory material by Leonard Lewin. The Dial Press, Inc., 1967, New York. So what happened was, why it's called the Report from Iron Mountain, is the elites, you can call them elitist people in these secret societies in government and big business, huge corporations, the wealthy people around the world, in particular in this case in the United States, had this dilemma because of the nuclear weapons. We can't have war anymore because the nuclear weapons are too destructive. So how do we control the people? So they handpicked a bunch of individuals from around the United States, maybe elsewhere, and they all met at this underground base, secret military base called Iron Mountain, and had to come up with some plans on how to control the people if we can't control them the way we have been controlling them for thousands of years, with wars. So how convenient is that? You get a population that's not going the way you want. You've got to support all these useless food eaters, they call us. And if you're elitist and you're in the Zionist Talmudic Jewish camp, anybody that's not Jewish is called Gentile, and Goyim, which means cattle. And if you don't need the workers, then what easier way to get rid of them than a war? Back then, years and years ago, the kingdom needed a lot of people because they were the fighting force to defend the kingdom. So they wanted a huge population, but I suppose if it got out of hand or the two kingdoms decided to get along and they didn't need all these people, they just have a convenient little war between the two of them and kill off a lot of the people. Kill off a lot of the men. Take a lot of the wealth. Interesting. So they got these elites together in Iron Mountain to come up with a plan. And anyways, they completed their mission. And one of the members of the group scratched his head and he said, "Man, this is really horrible stuff that they got planned. The people need to know about this." So he took one of the manuscripts and tried to get it published, and of course nobody would publish it, any of the big publishing companies. So he had to find a small private publisher to get these out to the public. The Report from Iron Mountain. Very important book. It explains a lot of what's going on in the world right now. And you combine that with the Hegelian dialectic. Basically, a dialectic is you have two opposing opposite forces, like the Democrats and the Republicans, the liberals and the conservatives, the blacks and the whites, the gays and the straights, the Americans and the Muslims, the Americans and the Mexicans. Build the fence. You have to keep these opposing forces at each other. So you in the background, you're the elitist. These people apparently who have been ruling the world for thousands of years and have been basically feeding themselves off of us humans, we humans. As crazy as it sounds, they've been behind the scenes and they've been abducting people, killing people. According to my understanding, the reptilian beings, even eating people. We all know they have sacrifices where they sacrifice people. And I'm going to go over that some more. And the more I dig, the more sicker it gets. And the pedophilia thing is exploding like a bomb everywhere. The videos on YouTube, it's out of proportion of the number of children. Herds of them, busloads of them, shiploads of them. And they have this whole industry where they abduct them and they move them to certain facilities closed military bases, underground facilities. It's all coming out. These satanic forces are doing this inconceivable, unbelievable, evil thing between murdering, sacrificing, torturing, and raping beyond imagination, and caging people. Miles Johnston, go look up some of his videos on the Basis series. He's had a lot of interviews with whistleblowers or people who escaped from this captivity. And the stories they tell. These people are so sick, so demented, they would even put a baby in a cage with a boa constrictor and watch the boa constrictor eat the child and other vicious animals with children. I could tell you more, but go watch Miles Johnston's in the Basis series if you really want to get sick. Don't even look up witchcraft holidays. You don't want to get sick. You don't want to see the pictures. Then the Talmud and the blood reliables and the Hebrew Jewish, not all Jewish people, but the ones who apparently have turned towards the dark side, into the Kabbalistic occult. Look what they feed us on TV. The TV shows Gotham and Hunger Games. And that one show called Lucifer and Spartacus and the viciousness. And that kind of stuff is not meant for the human mind. Because when you see that stuff, it's in there. You go look up witchcraft holidays and you see the pictures, it's in there. And I think the people controlling our world who are now trying to eliminate Christianity and Christmas and all good and go with this chaos and anarchy that George Bush Sr. said, out of chaos and anarchy will come the New World Order. To this one world globalization, money, people microchipped and tracked. Just like when you go on your computer right now. Don't even go on there and look for a couch or a car or even a lawnmower. Because everywhere you go now, checking your email or videos you watch or whatever, there'll be that little advertisement up there in the corner for a lawnmower, for a car. They're monitoring all of us these days. Even when you go groceries, you say, well, I don't use a credit card. I don't want them tracking me. But you got your little discount card. They've figured it out. So here, with the report from Iron Mountain, and one of the members of the elitists who were selected to help come up with some methods to control the people, because now it wasn't practical to have nuclear war. It's in this book. Let me read a little bit from it. Anyways, it's got a foreword, so I'll read a little bit from that. John Doe, as I will call him in this book, for reasons that will be made clear, is a professor at a large university in the Middle West. His field is one of the social sciences, but I will not identify him beyond this. So the guy who was part of this elitist group who published this manuscript called The Report from Iron Mountain did not want his name out there. He would probably be assassinated. Look what happened to President John Kennedy when he gave that famous speech. Secret societies are repugnant to the American way of life, and I intend to expose it all. Shortly after he's dead. So anyways, he telephoned me one evening last winter. This professor. Quite unexpectedly. We had not been in touch for several years. This is this publisher talking. He was in New York for a few days and he said there was something important he wanted to discuss with me. He wouldn't say what it was. We met for lunch and the next day at a midtown restaurant. He was obviously disturbed. He made small talk for half an hour, which was quite out of character, and I didn't press him. Then, apropos of nothing, he mentioned a dispute between a writer and a prominent political family that had been in the headlines. What he wanted to know, what were my views on freedom of information? How would I qualify them? And so on. My answers were not memorable. He began to tell me the following story. Early in August of 1963, think about this, 63, when they were publishing books like The Population Bomb. Remember how they used to kill people with wars? He found a message on his desk from a Mr. Potts, who had called him from Washington. When he returned the call, the man answered immediately and told Doe, this unanimous man, among other things, that he had been selected to serve on a commission of the highest importance. Its objective was to determine accurately and realistically the nature of the problems that would confront the United States if and when a condition of permanent peace should arrive, and to draft a program for dealing with this contingency. Because if you had permanent peace, and you have the internet, and people becoming more educated, healthy, as technologies advanced and the world became more enlightened, the rest of us would have figured out what's going on in the world with these elitists in the background doing all their sinister activities. Some of it quite horrific, notwithstanding that stealing all the wealth from people and all kinds of propaganda in the media, the news, the TV program, deceiving all of us, even withholding advanced technologies that could provide free electricity, as Mr. Nikola Tesla said, and many others. So these people had to figure out a way to keep the things the way they were, the status quo. The man described the unique procedures that were to govern the Commission's work, and that were expected to extend its scope far beyond that of any previous examination of these problems. So peace breaking out for these people was a problem. And the vast population around the world, with the advanced technologies, they didn't need all these people anymore. So they didn't want the rest of us to just live. They want to get rid of the people, like in Georgia, United States. They have the Georgia Guidestones. Please look them up and see what they say. The Georgia Guidestones, USA. It says they want a world population of 500 million. What do we have right now? They say, which I don't necessarily believe, but they say there's 6 billion. So if they want 500 million, I suppose they have to kill 5 or 6 billion people. How are they going to do that without a war? Well, we know right now with the genetically modified foods, which are toxic to we people, and the sky spraying of chemicals in the sky, and the HAARP electromagnetic transmitters, radio frequencies, sonic waves, you can cause earthquakes, and with the sky spraying you can control the weather, and vaccines and the mercury in the vaccines, and all this other stuff. It's an attack on all of us. They want to reduce the population. They make no bones about it. And we know that Israel is growing, has plans for a greater Israel. You can go look that up on Yahoo image site. And it's not that little country anymore. It extends all the way into Iraq, Syria, Egypt, all around there. And eventually, according to the material that I've been researching, they have plans to eliminate all of the Gentiles, murdering everybody, and having this new utopia. And Israel will rule the world. And I shouldn't say the Jewish people or a lot of the citizens. It's the elitists who are into this Kabbalistic, satanic religion. And it seems to be emanating from even a higher realm in the spiritual realm. Apparently there was a battle, and according to the Bible, where a third of the angels were cast out. So is what's planned in these cast out angels, these divine beings that are in communication with all these people into the Kabbalah, like Helena Blavatsky, Annie Besant, Alice Bailey, Albert Pike, who wrote Morals and Dogma, the Bible for the Freemasons, Aleister Crowley, all these people, Sabat and Zevi, these things I've been going over, and all this other material I've gone over this psychic research and remote viewing, leaving your body, spying for the government. So the spiritual world, in my opinion, and the research I've done, does exist. And apparently it's influencing this world. And in this world, these elites into this satanic type religion, Kabbalahs and all that, secret societies, they want to rule like aristocrats. They want to be the kings and the queens and the dukes and the princesses and wealthy. And everybody else needs to be a well-behaved slave. Even if you're selected to be one of somebody they abuse sexually or torture for entertainment. Just think about the movie Hunger Games. Divergent. They're showing us all this stuff. But back to the book. I can get rambling on, as we know. So it says here, so the man called one of his friends and told him about this program. Considering that the caller did not precisely identify either himself or his agency, his persuasiveness must have been of a truly remarkable order. Doe entertained no serious doubts about the bona fides of the project. However, chiefly because of his previous experiences with the excessive secrecy that often surrounds quasi-governmental activities. In addition, the man at the other end of the line demonstrated an impressively complete and surprisingly detailed knowledge of Doe's work and personal life. So he was being recruited to come up with this plan on how to control the people, deceive the people, so the people will continue to keep on loving the government, needing the government. Look what they did with Hillary and Donald Trump in the recent election. It was bizarre. Who doesn't think it was bizarre? To me, it was an insult to all of us. But now we know that there are 50% of Americans out there who are just sick. They think it's just horrible that we have a Republican Donald Trump president. And I think that was all intentional to make all these people go into despair after they gave them Obama, who promised them hope. The audacity of hope. You think there's a big game being played here? Without a doubt. Back to the book. He also mentioned the names of others who were to serve with the group. Most of them were known by Doe by reputation. So these elitists were selected to come up with some plans on how to keep the people loving the government, needing the government. You got to get some fear going. Sustainability, maybe. Global warming, you think? Droughts? Global cooling? Climate change? Planet X? Nibiru? Nemesis? Earthquakes? Yellowstone? Terror? 911? Gun shootings? Bombings? Plagues? You know, they're a bag of tricks. What have they not pulled out of a bag of tricks to try to scare the heck out of all of us? Thinking we need this government to save us. And because so many people are going to hack into your bank account, break into your house, run over somebody with a truck, shoot somebody, knife somebody. Somebody's going to have to track all this. They want to track us all so they can enslave people. And apparently with these microchips that they plan on putting inside people, if you really are somebody who's divergent, what you call a anti-government belligerent, they'll just turn you off. In the end, we all know God will win. And maybe these people are just being allowed to see how evil they really are. A lot of us don't understand why this is even allowed to exist. But it does exist. To the nth degree. Like a tangent. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But a lot of people are waking up. They're calling it the Great Awakening. So anyways, let's get back to this guy who was contacted to be selected to be part of this committee. Doe agreed to take the assignment. He felt he had no real choice in the matter, and to appear the second Saturday following at Iron Mountain, New York, an airline ticket arrived in his mail the next morning. The cloak and dagger tone of his convocation was further enhanced by the meeting place itself. Iron Mountain, located near the town of Hudson, is like something out of an Ian Fleming or Phillips Oppenheim. It is an underground nuclear hideout for hundreds of large American corporations. Who would have thought that they have that? If you've been watching my previous videos, they have all kinds of underground facilities. And I will be reviewing those issues in future videos again. Anyways, most of them use it as an emergency storage vault for important documents. But a number of them maintain substitute corporate headquarters as well, where essential personnel could presumably survive and continue to work after an attack. World War III. Okay, moving on here. This latter group includes such firms as Standard Oil of New Jersey, manufacturers Hanover Trust and Shell. So we know right now, if you've been paying attention to my videos or doing research on your own or just paying attention, you know there's something called the 1%ers. And this very minute group of people control everything. But they don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that everything is controlled. Recessions, depressions, even the good times. What happens at good times? Why would they allow that? That's because a lot of people, acting responsibly, accumulate a lot of wealth. Alright, moving on. My camera battery went dead. So I'm going to finish with this introduction and start reading from the book itself. I just thought some of the background was necessary. You can get the book. Used book sites are probably... I found it free online. You can download the PDF. That's how important it is. People aren't trying to sell it. They want you to know. It says right here, the report, he said, had been suppressed, both by this special study group itself and by the government interagency committee. The governments, the people who control the USA, responsible for this material, to which it had been submitted. After months of agonizing, Doe, John Doe, the anonymous participant, had decided that he would no longer be party to keeping the manuscript, their plan, what to do if peace broke out, and how to maintain control of the people. So he didn't want to continue to keep it a secret. What he wanted from me was advice and assistance in having it published. He gave me his copy to read with the express understanding that if for any reason I was unwilling to become involved, I would say nothing about it to anyone else. I read the report that same night. I will pass over my own reactions to it, except to say that the unwillingness of Doe's associates to publicize their findings became readily understandable. What had happened was that they had been so tenacious in their determination to deal comprehensively with the many problems facing the transition to peace, that the original questions asked of them were never quite answered. Instead, This is what they concluded. Listen up. Lasting peace, while not theoretically impossible, is probably unattainable. Even if it could be achieved, it would almost certainly not be in the best interest of a stable society to achieve it. So it'd certainly not be in the best interest of those who have been manipulating society all along. You think? That is the gist of what they say. Behind their qualified academic language runs this general argument. War fills certain functions essentially to the stability of our society. So what is our society where we have always had wars and the little people have always been suppressed, used and abused? Can't have that being undone, can we? Until other ways of finding them are developed, the war system must be maintained and improved in effectiveness. So if you wonder why you're not getting anywhere, you might get a good job, you lose a job, you might save up some money, you lose money. It's all planned, recessions, depressions, and even the good times. They can't fleece everybody if everybody doesn't have anything. So they got to allow you to come up and come up and come up and take you down. And since 1913, when the banksters, Rothschild, Illuminati types, Rockefeller, etc., Warburgs, Morgan, Schiffs, took over the Federal Reserve of the United States, they basically took over control of the United States in secret. Same people that President John Kennedy wanted to warn us about. But they killed him for that. And so many others have died who knew too much about so many topics. So moving back to the book here. It is not surprising that the group, in its letter of transmittal, did not choose to justify its work to the lay reader, unexposed to the higher political and military responsibilities. Its report was addressed deliberately to unnamed government administrators of high rank. So now you know what our high-ranking government officials and their advisors, and who controls the United States. According to Prime Minister Sharon of Israel, they control the United States. So the Zionist, Illuminati, secret societies, satanic cults, apparently the ones responsible. So I could continue reading more about this forward in this book. But I think I'm going to go back and just start reading some of the actual, you're not going to believe it. I read the entire book, you can see all my tabs here, years ago, quite a few years ago. But I never quite made a video out of it. So I think it's important to do it now because I talk about it a lot. Substitutes for the functions of war. Like I said, you can get this online free. I'll give you a little sample of what's in it, though. By now it should be clear, page 57, that the most detailed and comprehensive master plan for a transition to world peace will remain academic if it fails to deal forthrightly with the problem of the critically non-military function of war. The social needs that they serve are essential. The social need of wars are essential. Yeah, for the big corporations to make huge profits. And of course, depopulation and fleecing people of their properties. Can you imagine World War III seems to be looming, and then they go ahead and convince all the people that it's a legitimate war, and they declare martial law? No more freedom, and they'll do that as long as they want to. So now they give us sustainability, droughts, weather control, toxins, plagues, terror, and crazy politicians and elites into pedophilia. Bizarre. All right, So the social needs they serve are essential wars. If the war system no longer exists to meet them, substitute institutions will have to be established for the purpose. These surrogates must be realistic, which is to say, of the scope and nature that can be conceived and implemented in the context of present-day social capabilities. So all this propaganda has to be realistic. Bees dying, birds dying, sky spraying, who knows what they put up in the sky. HARP systems, electromagnetic transmitters, toxins, poisons, electronic EMFs, wind towers, propaganda, crazy movies, insanity, trying to destroy Christianity, any kind of decency. In the meantime, pushing forward to the nth degree again, the gay agenda and all that other bizarreness. So you'd think that their priority system is backwards. Well, it is backwards. Intentionally. Meant to mess with our heads. This is not the truism it may appear to be. The requirements for radical social change often reveal the distinction between the most comprehensive projection and a wildly utopian scheme to be fine indeed. Well, we know what they plan on doing with the New Age and the New World Order. Let's go watch Hunger Games. If you want to know that they also plan to eliminate a huge portion of the population, look up the Georgia Guidestones in the United States. Read them. Or watch some of the videos that I've made. And other people's. A lot of people are saying the same thing, including President John Kennedy. Alright, here we go. Economic. These are some of the things they're going to do to control you and I and everybody. We're all going to think it's all just incidental. Economic surrogates for war must meet two principal criteria. They must be wasteful, in the common sense of the word, and they must operate outside the normal supply-demand system. So this global system they're creating has to be interdependent upon each other. And to punish us, they can shut down anything they want, like raising the gas prices to $4 and now back down to $2. Can you imagine the billions they just suck out of the economy on a monthly basis, anywhere they want, destroying cities and states, countries? Look at Venezuela. I think they have more oil than any country of the world, and the people are starving. Don't you think that's intentional? The analogy, though crude, is especially apt for the American economy, as our record of secular depression shows. Intentional secular depressions. It's not incidental or just a coincidence. They plan these things. All have taken place during periods of grossly inadequate military spending. So if we don't have a lot of military spending, they say the economy goes into a nosedive. That's the mentality of the people who control our world. We're being fleeced. We're being cheated and deceived. When one considers the backlog of unfinished business, proposed but still unexecuted, in this field, the assumption seems plausible. Let us examine briefly the following list, which is more or less typical of general social welfare programs. Health, drastic expansion of medical research. Education, training facilities, hospital, clinic construction, and the general objective of complete government guaranteed health care for all, at a level consistent with the current developments in medical technology. So what they're saying here is they want to find a non-military economic function of war, at least to some extent, that will tend to assume that so-called social welfare expenditures will fill the vacuum created by the disappearance of military spending. they have to find a different way to spend all that money and create that whole cycle. War economy. Education, the equivalent of the foregoing in teacher training, schools, libraries, and a drastic upgrading of standards with the general objective of making available for all an attainable educational goal equivalent to what is now considered a professional degree. So these are things that maybe they could do to fill the vacuum. Transportation, and the establishment of a system of mass public transportation, making it possible for all to travel to and from the areas of work, recreation, quickly, comfortably, conveniently, and to travel privately for pleasure rather than necessity. Physical environment, the development and protection of water supplies, forests, parks, and other natural resources, the eliminations of chemicals and bacterial contaminants from air, water, and soil. So if they did ever attempt to actually do their job, there would be a lot of work and industry going on for 100 years to turn around the disastrous situation that the elites who control our world have created, notwithstanding this recent exposure to this child trafficking abduction network. Something is going on much way out of the norm, very sinister. Poverty, the genuine elimination of poverty defined by a standard consistent with current economic productivity by means of a guaranteed annual income or whatever system of distribution will best assure its achievement. You can believe they don't want to do any of this stuff. Moving on here just to my highlighted portions. This is only a sampler of the more obvious domestic social welfare items, and we have listed it in a deliberate, broad, perhaps extravagant manner. In the past, such a vague and ambitious sounding program would have been dismissed out of hand without serious consideration. It would clearly have been prima facie far too costly, quite apart from its political implications. Our objective to it, on the other hand, could hardly be more contradictory. As an economic substitute for war, it is inadequate because it would be far too cheap. So to fix the whole world is far too cheap to be a plausible way to find a substitute for war. But I am aware that there is a movement, and a lot of other people are aware, the politicians have said the words, it's not a mystery, but they do want to have a new world order in a new age, and according to my research, it is clearly of a satanic nature. Something much bigger than the rest of us. People are not aware of that. I've made videos, read many books. If this seems paradoxical, it must be remembered that up to now, all proposed social welfare expenditures have had to be measured within the war economy, not as a replacement for it. The old slogan about a battleship or an ICBM costing as much as X hospitals or Y schools or Z homes takes on a very different meaning if there are to be no more battleships or ICBMs. So even during the Cold War, which was again a big facade, there were goings-on behind the scenes working towards technologies and advancements that were detrimental to we the people. Look at the genetically modified foods and the pesticides and herbicides resistance and genes they actually put in those foods. If a bug won't eat the food that's genetically modified, why should we eat the food? If it'll kill the bug, why should we eat the food? Wouldn't it probably harm us? The answer is obviously yes. If you do any kind of research at all, there's plenty of pictures of rats and animals that they've fed GMO foods to, and the cancers and lesions and tumors are off the chart. But I have a feeling it's intentional. It's just like with the sky spraying of chemicals in the sky. That's got to be changing the the whole design, or the trying to find the right word there. Changing with the sky spraying. They're changing the genetic makeup of even the air. It's like they're trying to alter it for maybe some other hybrid creatures. Maybe it's not going to be friendly for humans when they're finished. Look at Fukushima. All right. In our opinion, the subject of a detailed cost and feasibility analysis, less than 10 years. In this short period, at this rate, the major goals of the program would have been achieved. Its capital investment phase would have been completed. So if they tried to do everything the right way and be responsible administrators and leaders of corporations and governments, they think it would all be done in less than 10 years, and they would have nothing else left to do. So it's not a plausible or feasible thing to do, to create a utopia, Garden of Eden all over the planet for everybody. With today's technologies, they could do that. And it would have established a permanent, comparatively modest level of annual operating cost within the framework of the general economy. So they can't fix that problem by doing the right thing, because it won't take care of their problem where they make all that money and stay in control. Another economic surrogate that had been proposed is a series of giant space research programs. These have already demonstrated their utility in a more modest scale within the military economy. What has been implied, though not yet expressly put forth, is the development of a long-range sequence of space research projects with largely unattainable goals. I'm not quite so sure that they can actually get off this planet into space now. I think we've been deceived largely with the moon Apollo missions. Seems probable. Back then, they didn't have the technologies. Today, they can't go to the moon. They don't go to the moon. Isn't that a bit bizarre? So I'm just trying to read some of the stuff in here showing political. Here we go. The war system makes the stable government of societies possible. It does this essentially by providing an external necessity for a society to accept political rule. See what I'm saying? What other institutions or combinations of programs might serve these functions in its place? So we have a narrow-minded, rather mentally ill group of people running our planet, which is obvious. They don't see the picture about creating a super planet for everybody to live in harmony. We have already pointed out that at the end of the war means the end of national sovereignty. So if they don't have war, there's no national sovereignty. That's what they think. I disagree. I think countries could respect their neighbors, especially with the technologies we have today. You could actually turn a desert into a nice agricultural place. Easy. And thus the end of a nationhood as we know it today. A number of proposals have been made governing the relationship between nations after total disarmament, are all basically judicial in nature. They contemplate institutions more or less like a world court or a United Nations, but vested with real authority. They may or may not serve their ostensible post-military purpose of settling international disputes. But we need not dismiss that here. None would offer effective external pressure on a pieced world nation to organize itself politically. It might be argued that a well-armed international police force, these things are coming, operating under the authority of such a supranational court could well serve the function of an external enemy. Wow, did you hear that? A well-armed international police force operating under the authority of such a supranational court could well serve the function of an external enemy. So I think they have plans for the battle to be between the peoples all over the planets and the governments. I think we can see that. Part of the prophesized microchipping people. It's a biblical satanic thing. It is possible that a variant of the unarmed forces idea might be developed in such a way that its construction, i.e. social welfare, activities could be combined with an economic threat of sufficient size and credibility to warrant political organization. So now they need a huge social welfare problem that would warrant political organization. So you see why they're creating all this social disorder and distress? They bring about a problem, and then they're going to come to the rescue and solve it. They bring us 911, and then they say that they're going to save us by apparently attacking all the countries in the Middle East and murdering millions of the citizens, and the ones that they haven't murdered, as they depopulate the Middle East, they're importing to all the countries in America and the world, Europe. How's that helping we the people? It's not intended to help we the people. These people have plans. Obvious destabilizing effect of any global social welfare surrogate on politically necessary class relationships would create an entirely new set of transition problems, at least equal in magnitude. So they need to create these huge problems and distractions for the rest of us. They know what they're doing. They've made plans. That's why I'm pointing out the issues in this book. In fact, it lies at the heart of the problem, any credibility, of developing a political substitute for war. This is where the space race proposals, in many ways so well suited as economic substitutes for war, fall short. The most ambitious and unrealistic space project cannot of itself generate a believable external menace. So they have to create a believable external menace. They've done that with the terror, and they're trying to disarm we the people. These people that are ruling the world, that I think are mentally challenged, to say the least, they do intermarry, interbreed. A lot of us know that. And apparently they may not be quite all human. It has been hotly argued that such a menace would offer the last best hope for peace. So we need an outside menace, some evil threat. And that could be the best hope for peace, these people think. By uniting mankind against the danger of destruction by creatures from other planets and from outer space. You know, aha moment there. You know what some of this propaganda is all about. Deception. Experiments have been proposed to test the credibility of an all-out war invasion threat, an out-of-our-world invasion threat. It is possible that a few of the more difficult to explain flying saucer incidents of recent years were in fact, listen to this, early experiments of this kind. So the whole UFO alien thing, is it just another huge fraud, facade, trying to create this way to take control of the world? A lot of people are saying that. If so, they could hardly have been judged encouraging. We anticipate no difficulty in making a need for a giant super space program credible for economic purposes. Even were there not ample precedent extending it for political purposes to include features unfortunately associated with science fiction would obviously be a more dubious undertaking. Nevertheless, an effective political substitute for war would require alternate enemies, some of which might seem equally far-fetched in the context of the current war system. It may be, for instance, that gross pollution on the environment. Did you just hear me? These are the ideas that they have. Gross pollution on the environment. Fukushima come to mind? Is Fukushima real or is it a fraud? Can eventually replace the possibility of mass destruction by nuclear weapons as the principal apparent threat to the survival of the species. And they're threatening us with Planet X, Nibiru, another star, dual star, Nemesis. These people have thought about this. And that's why this one participant in this group at Iron Mountain, who were supposed to come up with some proposals to solve the problem of world peace. How do they keep their grip on people and keep the disparity in income, make many people work as slaves, while the elites live in opulence beyond belief? Gigantic cruise ships and yachts that they own. John Kerry, all these people. They want to maintain the status quo. Well, there you go. They need us to feel like there is a threat of destruction. It must justify the need for taking and paying a blood price in wide areas of human concern. So I suppose they're not above having a lot of people killed to create that threat of destruction. So if they did explode, these people who are worried about losing their control, whether they're human or some kind of other alien hybrid beings, they're not above paying a blood price. So if they exploded a nuclear weapon in some city or harbor and said that there were future threats, and they have to enact martial law, or even a threat of World War III, or stopping a revolution, riots in the cities all over the United States or Europe. They do want to create this one world order, a new age. The people who rule our world appear to be behind the scenes in these secret societies. And they appear to be a threat to society. But they're trying to create this fraud, this deception, that the people are a threat. I'm a threat. You're a threat. Everybody's a threat. In this respect, the possible substitute enemies noted earlier would be insufficient. One exception might be the environmental pollution model. Here you go. If the danger to society is poised with was generally imminent, like Fukushima maybe? What is the truth? Why did they hide stuff? If Fukushima was such a threat, as it appears to be, why isn't it in the news, and why aren't the nations uniting to stop the continued release of radioactive waters into the ocean, apparently killing the fish on half the planet, from Brazil to Alaska? How far will it go? Remember the Gulf oil spill? This was 1963, the report from Iron Mountain. Are they following some kind of plan to create all these threats of destruction as written in this book? Games theorists have suggested in other contexts the development of blood games, Remember the movie Blood Games? For the effective control of individual aggressive impulses. I guess we got some really brainiacs here running our world coming up with these suggestions. It is an ironic commentary on the current state of war and peace studies that it was left not to scientists but to the makers of a commercial film to develop a model for this notion on the implausible level of popular melodrama as a ritualized manhunt. More realistically, such a ritual might be socialized. We're going to watch on TV while they have these humans hunted by other humans. Will our society come to that? Is this how they will keep the world under their control, under their thumb, with an iron fist, the symbol for communism? More realistically, such a ritual might be socialized in the manner of the Spanish Inquisition and a less formal witch trials of other periods for purposes of social purification. So part of the purification will be, now that the rainbow gay agenda, new age, progressive liberalism has been mind controlled on everybody, and they appear to be the people who disagree with that, Christian people, or the people that do not agree with homosexuality, transgenderism, hybrid human beings and all that, pansexual, having sex with anything, and orgies, bisexual, just open society, do whatever you want, as per the satanic theme of Aleister Crowley, and apparently all these political leaders into the pedophilia and so much more. Well, people who disagree with that, will they be accused of being a hater? That's what it seems like. Up will be down, down will be up. Good will be bad, bad will be good. So we'll have to have social purification for state security or other rational, both acceptable and credible to post-war societies. So will this be some of the solutions after a World War III or after huge revolutions all over the world? Is this why they had Jade Helm? Is this why they're having the police and sheriffs and other military offices all over the country start to gear up like they're all SWAT teams, and even with tanks? They even have this truck with a radiation emitter on top, like a dish microwave, called crowd control. The feasibility of such an updated version of still other ancient institutions, though doubtful, is considerably less fanciful than the wishful notion of many peace planners that a lasting condition of peace can be brought about without the most painstaking examination of every possible surrogate for the essential function of war. So they have to find a surrogate, a substitute for the function of war. These are some of their plausible ideas, suggestions. What is involved here, in a sense, is the quest for William James's moral equivalent of war. Just reading my highlighted portions here. In this case, I highlighted quite a bit. And all I plan on this video is to do this one chapter. Maybe when I do part 2, I'll do some other parts of this book. Alright, moving on. The relentless and irreversible advance of the unemployability at all levels of society and the similar extension of generalized alienation from accepted values may make some such programs necessary even as an adjunct to the war system. Did you hear what I just said? The worse things get, the more they're going to have to bring about these programs, these surrogates for war. You gotta love these geniuses. They're kind of seemingly a little mentally deranged. But then again, they brought us wars forever. Deception to society, crash in the economy, even spreading pathogens, biologicals, and plagues for experimentation on we the people. According to Leonard Horowitz and Leonard Cole and videos and books I've gone over. They released even these biological flus and viruses in train stations, offshore with a boat and a big fan, releasing this stuff off the coast of LA and other cities. Who gave them the right to do that? Just like the sky spraying now. Who gives them the right to spray us like we're bugs? Or the HARP transmitters. Apparently they're riding around in these big vans up in Washington State, microwaving whole communities just to see what will happen. Go look these things up, I say. Don't believe me. I've read them. So again, there is ample precedent in the treatment meted out to the disfavored. So if you're not in with these M groups and you don't have a lot of money, you're going to be the disfavored. Allegedly menacing. You'll be menacing if you're disfavored and you don't have any money. Ethnic groups in certain societies during certain historical periods. I did see one little cartoon where these places where homeless people were sleeping in corners, the local governments put little spikes in the ground so they couldn't lay down. Same thing they do like for pigeons. Just goes to show you what they think of us. Ecological. Considering the shortcomings of war as a mechanism of selected population control. It's in this book. You can't make this up. Oh my. It might appear that devising substitutes for this function, population control, should be comparatively simple. So they think that substitutes for war as a population control function, as it says right here, they think that it should be comparatively simple to do that. Oh my. But they don't want their kids and their family to die, whoever these people are. War has not been genetically progressive. But as a system of gross population control to preserve the species, I should say to preserve the lifestyle of the elites, it cannot fairly be faulted. Current trends in warfare and the increased strategic bombing of civilians, I'm reminded of all over the Middle East and what's going on in Syria right now and what they've been doing to the Palestinians, and the greater military importance now attached to the destruction of the sources of supply. And all over the Middle East, they targeted sewer systems, water systems, agriculture. They were starving these people out, the ones that haven't been bombed and machine gunned to death, as reported by plenty of people who come back from the military. And a lot of those people were so anguished. There's a high suicide rate amongst the soldiers who come home. It's got to be detrimental to the brain to be participating in what they're doing in the Middle East, in particular Syria, and it's seemingly what's looming ahead is what they plan on doing to Iran. Then, of course, finishing off the Palestinians, and I'm sure they'll get to Lebanon, so they can get everybody but these selected peoples, these Zionist people, and all the followers, a lot of innocent Israelis, citizens, are protesting a lot of this stuff. So they want to bomb civilians and sources of supply, their survival needs, as opposed to purely military bases and personnel. If you ever go look up on Yahoo Images or on the internet, bombed buildings in the Middle East, it's beyond your imagination, the pictures. They're not just fighting terrorists, they're destroying all the cities and the buildings. annihilating everything. I mean, the pictures tell all. Yahoo image site. I couldn't believe it. Assuming the war system is to continue, it is more than probable that the regressive selective quality of war will have been reversed, and as its victims become more genetically representative of their societies. So I guess they'll be selectively choosing who they're going to bomb. There is no question but that a universal requirement for procreation be limited to the products of artificial insemination. Do you hear what I'm saying? These people came up with ideas in 1963. These elites who met at Black Mountain in New York. And then one of them said, this material is too crazy. The public needs to know about this. And he went through great lengths to find a publisher, risking his life to get this material out. I'm only reading a tidbit here, so if you can go find this book or get the PDF form online free, please read it, highlight it, share it with your friends. So now they don't want people to have children the normal way. And apparently the sky spraying, the aluminum and other stuff they're dumping, and including the vaccines, is having some effect on the reproductive abilities of we humans. Somebody's doing something detrimental to our society. So it says here, products of artificial insemination would provide a fully adequate substitute control for population levels. Such a reproductive system would, of course, have the added advantage of being susceptible to direct eugenic management. So they can redesign we humans, as if they're not doing that, so it seems. Its predictable further development, conception, and embryonic growth taking place wholly under laboratory conditions would extend these controls to their logical conclusion. The ecological functions of war under these circumstances would not only be superseded but surpassed in effectiveness. The indicated intermediate step, total control of conception with a variant of a ubiquitous pill via water supply. So they're going to put this stuff in the water supplies. Or certain essential food stuff like milk, offset by the controlled antidote, is already under development. And I must say, I've thought about this before, but go look up the Fritz Springmeier's Bloodlines of the Illuminati. These names, I've got the book here. And interestingly enough, if I look in here, a common manufacturer of house cleaning chemicals and stuff. Big family name, there's plenty of them here. DuPont, Reynolds, what do you got, Reynolds Wrap, aluminum, look how many DuPonts there are in this book. I'm not going to name the other names, but they're on your breakfast cereal for your kids. And so much more. But the elites control our food supply, and these foods that we all eat, breakfast cereals, milk, chemicals we use, and they appear to be the enemy of we the people. They can put anything they want to tomorrow. So my point is I've been shopping at specialty stores where your things are supposed to be organic or checked out. Not that it's probably 100% safe, but I think it's safer than the general food store. When you go buy groceries, the organic or locally supplied meats or vegetables, etc., made by individual smaller companies, crackers, but certain kind of organic potato chips. You know the names of these stores. One begins with an E, one begins with a W. I don't want to say the names. But it's healthier food. And it costs more. But when I consider what these corporations can do at any time they want to, put into the foods, if they have a targeted action they want to take against we the people, it might behoove a lot of people to switch. And I'm thinking the amount of toxins and chemicals and detrimental things that get into our bodies could be significantly reduced and improve people's health. For one thing, I would highly suggest that everybody stop drinking the sodas with the other things, including the aspartame and all this other stuff. I go with, I buy a juice, like grapefruit juice, and I buy bottles of purified water. When I want to drink something, I just have a half a glass of water and pour in some of this juice. I've just completely eliminated soda. And apparently a lot of the other foods probably need to be eliminated. But it's a thing you can go on the internet and look up. But I'm just saying, these huge corporations who are providing name brand cereals to your kids, milk and cheese and many other things, in the huge department commercial grocery stores, it might behoove everybody to spend a little more money and go to a healthy food store where they have organics and other stuff that's hand selected from smaller companies. You might just be putting a lot less toxins and other detrimental elements in your body. It's worth the effort, in my opinion. Alright, moving on to this report here. The real question here, therefore, does not concern the viability of a war substitute, but the political problems involved in bringing it about. It cannot be established whether the war system is still in effect. The reason for this is simple. Excess population is war material. Excess population is war material. So the government's main goal will be for the benefit of those that are left alive, reduce the population. As long as any society must contemplate even a remote possibility of war, it must maintain a maximum supportable population. Even when so doing critically aggravates an economic liability. I will say this, they're economically attacking the Europe, United States, and a lot of the world. But the one country that's just shooting to the top right now is, of course, Israel. And I think last year, 2016 or 2015, it was published that the Obama administration had allocated the largest portion of money to Israel that year. So these government officials, in my opinion, are playing games with our minds, like I keep saying. Obviously, with Bush and 9/11 and all the wars depopulating and attacking all the cities and peoples all over the Middle East, was pro-Israel. And then Obama, which they tried to portray it as not, he was doing the same thing, pro-Israel. And with President Donald Trump now moving the embassy, so they say, and meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington, I guess, and speaking on TV the other day, February 2017, is pro-Israel. So all this other stuff I've been going over in my videos, we can see there is some intellectual, sinister design behind the scenes to bring about these things I'm talking about in this book, which was published in 1963. Now that was a lot of words, but if you go look this stuff up, you'll find it. We all see around us that the world appears to be bizarre. Even the TV programming with these TV shows like Lucifer, Gotham, 2.5 Men, Charlie having sex with a different female every show, and then Modern Family, they are reprogramming us. And if you're not a supporter of the Modern Family, I guess, New Age, rainbow agenda, gay agenda, transgenderism, pansexual, pedophilia even, then you must be a hater. I hate to say it, but that's what it seems to be, what they're planning. War controls the general population level, page 74. But the ecological interest of any single society lies in the maintaining of its system versus other societies, its own issues. So you got to wonder who behind the scenes is actually benefiting from all of this. Who are these elites who live in gigantic mansions with yachts and power and billions of dollars obtained at the expense of the rest of us? I say that because I'm reminded of what's going on and has gone on in Africa and the rest of the world. But Africa in particular, where they have diamond mines and gold mines, so much profit, but yet they treat the people like slaves. This is coming to the whole world. These people don't want to share anything, and they want humans to be good little animals and work till they drop. Because as some particular cults, organizations, Zionist, Illuminati types, secret society types of all kinds of colors and religions, these people who rise to the top, who prove that they are evil and will work with the evil intent, they think the rest of us are just animals to be disposed of and used as they see fit. That's the only way I can say what I see here. They're planning World War III. They talk about Civil War #2 in the United States. The EU was planned, combining all those nations. Even Italy recently was supposed to be signing some kind of contract that their presidents would be selected by the people at the head of the European Union. They would not be selecting their own president anymore. They would not be a sovereign, independent nation anymore. They want to eliminate sovereign, independent nations all over the world. They want this new world order, this new age. And of course, everybody says to me, who is they, Rick? Apparently, it's these people that are derivatives of the cast out angels or something like that, written in the Bible. And they have a unique propensity, desire, cultist religion that is opposite of the Ten Commandments. I believe in showing that even when I went through the Encyclopedia Judaica and looked up Jesus and made that video a couple videos back, I couldn't believe what was written in there about Jesus. It was it was as bad as it could get. FYI, all the things that I've been saying and researching appear to be the case the more I read, and I have plenty of other books I need to read, and it's going to continue to show the same thing and the same thing. But at what point will people wake up? Will people wake up? Of course, I believe we're spiritual beings in these biological bodies. So what's the worst they could do to somebody like me is to kill a person. But they can't take my soul. You have to give your soul willingly. And that's what they're doing with all this progressive and liberal transgenderism, pansexualism, and all that stuff. They want you to surrender your soul and not believe in God. And agree that they should be killing people and poisoning and toxins and drugs and sickness everywhere. There's something called karma. So people need to rethink what they're thinking, and mentally we can create our own reality. We don't have to allow these things that are report from Iron Mountain. Moving on, almost finished with this video. I'm only going to do this one chapter. Substitutes for the functions of war. That's the chapter. As we noted earlier, a real possibility of an unprecedented global crisis of insufficiency exists today, which the war system may not be able to forestall. So they're saying that there's a global crisis looming. Is it looming for us, or is it looming for them? And to hedge off it happening to them, do they have to destroy us? There is clearly no solution to this dilemma. It is a risk which must be taken, but it tends to support the view that if a decision is made to eliminate the war system, it were better done sooner than later. Did you hear me? Page by page in this book, just crazy, insane. Cultural and scientific. There are many other books out there supporting this stuff. I've gone over and made videos. Look at the Jewish Utopia by Professor Higger I made. Go back and look that up. And on my website, rickmiracle.com, there on the left-hand side, top, front page, there is a link you can go to where it has a list of all my videos, the series numbers, the books, and the authors. So you can make a cheat sheet. And on the top right-hand side of my rickmiracle.com is a donate page, which nobody has tested to see if it works. I've had it up there for a year and haven't received a penny. I don't make any money off of doing this work, reading the books, buying these books, making the videos. But I trust in the higher power to take care of me. And so far, it does. So everything is okay. You got to have faith and belief, which they don't want you to have, by the way. I made the videos on Rabbi Marvin Antelman's book, To Eliminate the Opaque. Your belief in God, your ability to pray. Your prayers get answered. All right, cultural and scientific. Our criterion for the basic non-military functions of war has been, are they necessary to the survival and stability of society? How insane is this thinking? The absolute need for substitute cultural value determinants and for the continued advance of scientific knowledge is not established. We believe it important, however, in behalf of those for whom the functions hold subjective significance, that it be known what they can reasonably expect in culture and science after a transition to peace. I suppose a enslaved, monitored, microchipped society where they control your breeding and everything in laboratories, genetics, eliminating those unwanted people, the useless food eaters, or unwanted population. The elimination of war would in due course deprive them of their principal cognitive force, but it would necessarily take some time for the effect of this withdrawal to be felt. At the same time, a new anesthetic would have to be developed. So what are they going to do? This anesthetic would reject unequivocally the classic requirement of paramilitary conflict as the substitute content of a great art. The eventual effect of the peace world philosophy of art would be the democratizing in the extreme, i.e. communist, in the sense that a general acknowledgement acknowledged subjectivity of artistic standards would equalize their new content-free values. So all this detrimental destruction going on in our world, birds dying, bees dying, Fukushima, global warming, global cooling, climate change, terrorism, biodiversity, sustainability, plagues, viruses, flus, vaccines, GMOs, genetically modified foods, and so much more, weather control, causing droughts. Then after the drought has been around for a couple years, like in California, they make it rain like crazy. And you know what happens then? All that soil that has been dried up, all of a sudden it's a hugely destructive activity when they start to allow it to rain again. Everything floods beyond belief. I believe they know what they're doing. Just saying, none of this had to happen. But back in the 60s, after World War II and the Cold War, these planners and the annexation of the Palestinians' land to create the State of Israel, they're trying to bring about this prophecy. I believe it's all connected. This new age and new world order, this Kabbalistic satanic system. I can't trust our politicians almost anywhere. It's more than bizarre what they were caught doing with Pizzagate over in England, all the pedophilia. And I have material on that which I will go over. It's just beyond belief. There was one website I was just looking at. This is pretty serious. I wanted to share this. But Alfred Lambermont Weber, Alfred Weber, W-E-B-R-E. I was watching a video. The exposes pedocriminal tunnel holding children at WVA Droop, D-R-O-O-P, Mountain Museum, published February 11, 2017. There's a talk show with this one author who's been investigating this. I know it's bizarre, but that's what it is. But apparently they have all these underground or facilities, old abandoned military bases, where they're abducting children everywhere, all over the country, the world, and feeding them into this system. They have holding cells and centers. It's beyond belief. So I encourage people to go look this up. But they are, for some reason, abducting hundreds of thousands of young children for some nefarious purposes. And we know that they're seriously into this new eugenics and even the other stuff I went over recently. Over in Middle East, when they bomb a city, they have something called these white hats that go in there at night. Not the people during the day bombing the city, the black hats. But the white hats go in at night, and any survivors or people left alive, they're harvesting the organs, eyes, hearts, and other things. Apparently, you know, a human body is worth $200,000 to these vultures. It's just beyond belief. And you read stuff like in this book. And it's not easy doing this research, I've got to tell you. The stuff you find is satanic, insane. Just too much to believe. You have to ask God, look up and go, how could you allow this? Must be a reason. So anyways, moving on here. What may be expected to happen is that art would be reassigned the role it once played in a few primitive, peace-oriented social systems. A cult has developed around a new kind of cultural determinism, which possesses that the technological form of a cultural expression determines its values rather than does its ostensible meaningful content. Its clear implication is that there is no good or bad art, only that which is appropriate to its technological times and that which is not. So there you go into your dualism. In Aleister Crowley's philosophy, there is no such thing as good or bad. It all just is. So that would be contrary to the Ten Commandments, and of course we Christian haters who don't agree with this. So far as science is concerned, it might appear at first glance that a giant space research program, the most promising among the proposed economic surrogates for war, might also serve as a basic stimulator of scientific research. It did occur to me, as I continue my research, as bizarre as it may seem, in these books right here, this shelf here, and down here, are just a few, well actually it's right here. Those are just maybe 25% of my UFO alien books. And as the more that I research this and the more I see other stuff about this New Age and New World Order, I'm becoming convinced that it's being orchestrated, the UFO alien whole issue, since then after World War II, and went seriously on to the increase. But even as Ivan Sanderson in his book Invisible Residents proved, these beings have been on the planet forever. The ancient monuments, been on the planet forever. So behind the scenes, it appears there have been these demonic evil entities in the background controlling things. And basically, as crazy as it sounds, they're feeding off us. They need us as a sort of a food and a resource. So it seems. They created all this intentional propaganda and incidents and abductions and sightings. They have the technology, in my opinion. They've always had the technology. Look up Ivan Sanderson and Invisible Residents, the book. Even in the 1800s, 1700s, Lloyd's of London, the insurance company, there are reports of ships' captains, when they get back to harbor, making insurance claims about these saucers that come up out of the water and buzz the ship and break the mast or something. We all know about the megalithic monuments all over the world. The Peruvians with the Machu Picchu lines, Lebanon with the gigantic stones bigger than school buses. Stones that can't be cut or moved today with our technology. The pyramids, the Sphinx. Peter Moon in that one book I went over, Transylvania Sunrise, in the Busigi Mountains in Romania. Highly advanced technological equipment and chairs that only a giant could sit in. And when you did get up on the table, these electronic holographic monitors were there. You'd wave your hand and these images would come up and show some of the history of the world. So what are we dealing with? Whatever we're dealing with, we all need to wake up. Apart from the partial substitutes for war, it must be kept in mind that a monument given to scientific progress by the great wars of the past century, and even more by the anticipation of World War III. It says it right here, 1963. So you think about something and that's what you get. They're talking about the anticipation of World War III. Didn't Albert Pike, in his letter to his friend Mazzini in Italy back in the 1880s, say that there would be 3 world wars required to bring about the new age and the new world order? Its intellectual and material is enormous. World War III says it right here. Oh my. Alright, I'm going to read the last page here. I only did one chapter. There's much more in this book. I wanted to kind of make my point because I referenced the report from Iron Mountain, something that they wrote. A bunch of elites were selected, gathered together in Iron Mountain once every month or whatever. Professors and scientists and business leaders, CEOs, to come up with a plan to what to do and how to control the people and the society after there were no more wars, when peace broke out. Can you imagine that? Instead of war breaking out, they're worried about peace breaking out. All right, moving on here. We, of course, offer no independent value judgments here. But it is germane to point out that a substantial minority of scientific opinion feels that search to be circumscribed in any case. This opinion is itself a factor in considering the need for a substitute for the scientific function of war. For the record, they say in this book, we must also take note of the precedent that during long periods of human history, often covering thousands of years, in which no intrinsic social value were assigned to scientific progress, stable societies did survive and flourish. Although this could not have been possible in the modern industrial world. We cannot be certain it may not again be true in the future world at peace. So we do have this summary and conclusion. On the contrary, it is itself the principal basis of an organization on which all modern sciences are constructed, the nature of war. So again, the functions of war, summary and conclusion. I think I'll save it for another video. But you get the point. I felt it was necessary to make a video on this and fill in one of the holes in my series. And I believe this will be filling in another hole in the series when I make this one. I'm almost through reading it. I'm up to page 177. Bloodlines of the Gods. Abductions of people, gray aliens, black-eyed children, reptilians. Seemingly fully intentional in trying to create the paradigm effect in our brains that these things really exist and are some kind of extraterrestrial threat, as described in the report from Iron Mountain that they needed to convince the world to accept this new age and new world order and new society. I started this series back in 2013, September, October time, after I've been reading books since 2005, trying to figure out what the heck is going on in the world. And after reading 100 or so books, I said, well, now's the time to start sharing this information. And I've been continuing to purchase books and read books, and it's starting to gel in my head what's going on. There is this plan, it is evil, and there is a bad day coming, whatever they're going to do. Just like 9/11 surprised us all. I'm sure World War I surprised everybody. World War II surprised everybody. The intentional creation and instigating of the Civil War I in the United States was intentional. These forces have been operating behind the scenes. Even in all the documentation I have with the Bolshevik, Zionist, Jewish folks, the communist types looking for this new Zionism future, ruling the world from Israel, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem, is all intentional. They fomented the revolutions, the French Revolution. They had their hand in it. They have their hand in everything, like this crazy election we just had with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. It was bizarre to most people. And now Donald Trump is doing things And a lot of the supporters on alternate news sites and other comments on press releases are starting to scratch their heads saying, whoa, he's making some moves that are making us all concerned. He's not here to change anything. It's going to be another George Bush Jr., another George Bush Sr., another Bill Clinton, another Obama. Controlled by the puppet masters, so it seems. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle Recording.